Hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We've got another story to share with you, so let's begin. My name is Rowan, and this is how one offhand joke blew my marriage apart, while also changing what I believe about patience, respect, and love. I was married to Marissa, a woman I once felt certain I'd grow old with. From the very beginning, long before rings and vows, we talked about kids constantly, mapping out a future in late-night conversations. How many we'd have, the names that felt right, who they might take after. We pictured a loud, happy home, dinner tables crowded with little voices, and playrooms always mid-mess. I could already see myself running alongside a wobbly bike, palm at the seat, or reading storybooks to a sleepy daughter who refused to close her eyes. Marissa adored children. She'd light up watching a video of a giggling toddler and say, "One day, that's going to be us." When we finally married, we didn't want to wait. After years of dreaming aloud, there didn't seem a reason to stall. As soon as we exchanged vows, we started trying. In the beginning, it was exciting. Each month felt like a fresh slate, a hopeful countdown. We even turned it into a game. She'd bring home baby name books, and we'd sit side by side sketching out what our child might look like, which features would land, where, what kind of parents we'd be when the real thing arrived. But months went by, and nothing changed. We shrugged it off at first, and repeated what everyone says. Don't stress. It happens when you least expect it. So we tried to loosen our grip, telling ourselves life would pick the timing for us, and we'd nod along when it did. As months melted into a full year, and then 2, the shine wore off. The playful game turned into quiet hoping, and quiet hoping grew heavy. Negative tests stopped being a blip and started to feel like a pattern. Each one stung just a bit more than the last, and the calendar felt heavier every time we turned a page. By the start of the 3rd year, doubt had settled, like a weight we carried into every room. We stopped talking about nurseries. The name books ended up behind other books on a shelf we didn't touch. Marissa tried to act unbothered, but it showed in the way her eyes moved whenever someone mentioned kids. The conversations that once made her glow now made her shift in her seat and change the subject. We couldn't pretend anymore. Something was wrong. So, after 3 years of waiting and hoping and telling ourselves time would fix it, we decided to get checked. The tests were straightforward blood work and a few others, and then we waited for answers that we hoped would be simple and solvable. When the doctor sat us down, his words landed like a blow. "Rowan, your sperm count is extremely low. Right now, it's nearly impossible for you to conceive naturally." I remember sitting there, hollow, while my heart pounded in my throat. Marissa stared ahead, silent as the doctor continued. Not total infertility. A slim possibility remained. Boosters, diet, exercise could help. But the only words that stuck were the ones that felt like a verdict. I couldn't give Marissa the family we'd pictured 1,000 times. That night, I lay awake watching the ceiling and felt something collapse in me. I felt like I'd failed as a husband. What kind of man can't give his wife a child? Marissa told me she wasn't going anywhere. She held my hand and said we'd figure it out together. But as the days stacked up, her actions read differently. She started avoiding baby talk. If friends brought up pregnancies or showed pictures of their kids, she'd walk off or change the thread, which, on its face, wasn't wrong. Everyone protects themselves in their own way. The problem was what came after. The way the anger took root, the way it lived for days, sometimes weeks, and how the passive shots started landing on me. At first, I told myself she was processing, like I was. Then the little jabs began. "I just don't get it. How can 2 healthy people struggle to conceive?" she said one night, shaking her head over dinner. Maybe if we'd started earlier, it wouldn't be like this. Small comments, tossed off like they meant nothing, but each one cut deeper than the last. I started to fear she'd leave. At first it was a passing thought. Then it moved in. I tried to ignore it and call myself dramatic, but the signs multiplied. Marissa wasn't the same. She started coming home late with familiar excuses, Dinner with the girls needed to clear her head. A pattern set in. She spent more time away and fewer words at home. The goodnight kiss that used to be automatic disappeared. The habit of falling asleep on my chest vanished. She barely looked at me. The warmth in her eyes was gone. One night I asked, "Are we okay?" She rubbed her forehead like the question itself exhausted her. "I don't know, Rowan. I just wish things were different." That sentence broke me. I had done everything I was told to do. I took the boosters. I rebuilt my diet. I exercised every day. I followed every instruction. But no matter how strictly I tried to fix the part I could touch, I couldn't fix us. The silence in our house got louder. I'd sit in the living room at night and stare at pictures on the walls, smiling faces from a time when hope was a given. The place stopped feeling like home. It felt like a waiting room. And whenever Marissa spoke, I flinched at the start, bracing for another slice. "It's just frustrating," she'd say, "watching everyone move forward while we're stuck. Maybe we weren't meant to have kids together." She never yelled, never pointed a finger directly, but her words opened me up in places arguments never reached. I wanted to believe she was just hurting, that this was grief misfiring. But somewhere beneath all the rationalizing, I knew she was already halfway out the door. One evening, we went to a friend's casual backyard, get-together, just familiar faces, music, drinks, and easy conversations. I wasn't in a social mood, but Marissa dove in, drank more than usual, and laughed louder than her usual laugh. I sat back, watched, tried to let it all roll past me. Inevitably, the conversation turned to children. A couple announced a pregnancy, the group erupted, advice bloomed, and someone, with no malice in their voice, turned and asked us, "So when are you two giving us a baby to spoil?" Marissa laughed, and then, without a pause, loud enough for everyone, said, "Rowan, oh please, he's not even man enough to get me pregnant." A thick silence slammed down. Laughter died. Conversation splintered into stares and awkward half-turns. Some people looked at me, then away. Others pretended they hadn't heard. But I had. And there was no world where I could pretend. My wife hadn't just stripped me down in front of everyone we knew. I didn't argue or ask her why. I didn't tell her to stop or make a scene. I just stood, walked out, and left. I wasn't angry at that second. I was finished. There was nothing left to salvage in that moment. At home, I went straight to our bedroom, pulled out a duffel, and started packing. Essentials-only clothes, wallet, toiletries. I didn't know where I'd sleep that night, just that it wouldn't be under that roof. I zipped the bag, looked around once, and stepped out of the place that used to be mine. I checked into a hotel across town and turned off my phone. For the first time in a long time, there was silence without dread. No forced small talk. No second-guessing every sentence. Just quiet. And somehow, quiet felt like breathing again. When I powered my phone up the next morning, messages poured in. Friends who'd seen the moment reached out checking on me, offering to talk. Then there were Marissa's texts, one from the night asking where I was, and then, in the morning, "Are you hurt because of what I said?" It was just the drink. I read that line over and over. There was no apology, no remorse, just an excuse. I didn't respond. When she realized I wouldn't, she stopped trying for that day. A few days after I left, she found the note I'd written and left on her dresser. It said, "I stayed through everything, the fights, the disrespect. But if even my greatest pain is a punchline to you, I don't belong here." She texted me after she read it. I knew she had. I don't know what she felt in that moment. Shock, embarrassment, anger. I do know she hadn't expected me to really go. Maybe she thought I needed space and would boomerang back in a week like nothing happened. The letter made it clear this was not that. I heard nothing the first day. Or the next. Then she started calling. Messages trickled, then multiplied. She wanted to meet and talk. I stayed silent. Mutual friends reached out. She'd asked them to convince me to come home. I had made my choice. I wasn't going back. About a week into her campaign, she received divorce papers. That was the last thing I needed to say. I wasn't going to beg, argue, or relive the cuts in a courtroom of our friends. I was done. After leaving, I moved to a new city and started over. It wasn't easy, not at first. Life alone requires learning yourself again. But slowly, peace took root. I learned to like my own company. I learned to put down the weight I'd been carrying. More importantly, I learned I am more than my ability to father a child. Then I met Elena. She was different kind, steady, understanding. We took it slow. For the first time in years, I felt fully wanted without conditions. A year into our relationship, she sat me down one evening with a look I couldn't quite read. Some mix of excitement and nerves, and something like fear. "Rowan, I'm pregnant," she said. My mind scrambled. I laughed, a quick, wrong laugh, assuming she was teasing. She didn't smile. She was waiting. The amusement vanished, and confusion sat in its place. "Pregnant? How?" was all I could think. The words came out sharper than I intended. That's not possible. The only explanation that made sense to the version of me sitting in that chair was betrayal. I accused her. The hurt on her face said everything. She didn't yell, didn't cry. Calmly, she told me she hadn't been with anyone else and was certain, completely certain I was the father. I said we needed a paternity test. She agreed without hesitation. "Do whatever you need," she said. Waiting for the results felt like standing on a thin ledge. If it came back the way my fear said it would, I'd shatter. If, by some miracle, it said I was the father, then my entire understanding of myself would tilt. When the results arrived, the ground shifted. I was the father. I read it a dozen times and still felt like the room was moving. The doctors had been so sure, my count too low, my chances close to zero. And yet, here was evidence that reality had turned. I booked an appointment at a fertility clinic the next day. I needed to know whether this was lightning in a bottle or something had actually changed in me. The tests confirmed what I thought I'd never hear. My fertility had improved significantly. Whether it was the lifestyle changes I'd maintained, the passage of time, or something medicine doesn't fully parse, my body had done what I'd once believed it couldn't. I was no longer infertile. The irony wasn't lost on me. If Marissa had been patient, if she'd chosen to stay, if she'd held on a little longer, we might have had the family we'd planned. But as I stood there holding Elena's hand, I felt no regret. My marriage to Marissa had been built on pressure, disappointment, and words we didn't say aloud. With Elena, it was different. Love without conditions, without keeping score. For the first time, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. I don't know what became of my ex-wife, and after I left, I never asked. She never tried to find me. Maybe she moved on and had kids. Maybe she regrets what happened. Maybe she tells herself a story where she did nothing wrong. I don't know. I don't need to. Some doors are meant to stay shut. I'm not bitter. I'm grateful I got a second chance to be valued for who I am, not for what I can or cannot give. Elena stood with me without caveats, without passive-aggressive stings, without making me feel like I was always 2 steps behind. Looking back, it's clear. Love isn't only for the easy days. It shows up when things are hard. Through patience, through choosing kindness, even when frustration buzzes under the skin. Marissa had a choice. Be my partner in the struggle, or turn my pain into a party joke. She chose the joke. You can't unsay certain things. Words leave scars, and the deepest ones are carved by the person you trusted most. If there's one thing to take from this, it's this. Patience and respect matter. If someone is loved, their pain is never a punchline. You don't humiliate the person beside you, least of all in front of others. And you don't let temporary emotion ruin something that could still become beautiful. In the end, I'm glad it turned out the way it did. I ended up with someone who loves me for me. That's the story. Tell me what you think in the comments. If you were in my position, what would you have done? Did Marissa deserve another chance? Or was walking away the only road left? And if someone needs to hear this, share it with them. Until next time, take care.